What if I told you Garuda can hit enemies through walls, and then cause Jade stars to rain critical heat damage onto enemies she never even saw? That's the idea behind this build. This is Garuda Jade Star Talons Massacre. The entire build revolves around using blending talons to turn seeking talons into a massive wall-piercing area attack, then abusing the fact that Jade stars can react to ability damage on enemies that were never actually in your line of sight. The result is a Garuda build that can sit invisible, repeatedly spam seeking talons, and kill enemies in completely different rooms. And honestly, it's so effective that it starts making the game feel boring. So let me explain how this monstrosity works. The foundation is Garuda's fourth ability, Seeking Talons. Normally, seeking talons requires line of sight. If an enemy is standing behind a wall, the ability won't hit them. But blending talons completely changes that. Blending talons allows the tap-cast version of seeking talons to hit enemies without requiring line of sight. So now, enemies can be behind walls. They can be in another room. You don't even need to be able to see them, as long as they're caught within the ability's range. Blending talons allows seeking talons to hit them, and once that line of sight restriction is gone, the obvious next step is make the range as stupidly large as possible. I'm using overextended, stretch, and auger reach for a total of 265% ability range. And because seeking talons can hit through walls, increasing range doesn't just make the ability easier to hit with, it increases the number of enemies you can hit through walls. You're not limited to enemies standing in front of you. You're effectively damaging everything in a massive area around you. So already, we have Garuda throwing out /damage through walls across a huge radius. But that's only the first part, because now we add Jade stars. I subsumed Jade stars over Garuda's Dread Mirror, and the reason is simple. Jade stars can fire heat damage at enemies affected by your abilities. So when Seeking Talons hits a group of enemies, the stars can begin targeting those enemies. And here's where this interaction gets ridiculous. The stars don't care that Seeking Talons hit the enemy without line of sight. Seeking Talons hits an enemy through a wall. That ability damage can trigger the Jade stars, and then the stars can attack enemies that are sitting in entirely different rooms. So the actual gameplay starts looking like this. You cast Seeking Talons. Blending Talons lets it hit enemies all around you, even through walls. Jade stars start firing. Enemies start taking heat damage. You cast Seeking Talons again. More enemies get hit, more stars fire, and eventually, you're basically sitting in one location while the surrounding map gets deleted. That's the core interaction. But Jade stars have a problem, or at least they would, if we didn't completely break their critical stats. Jade stars normally have a 0% base critical chance. They also have 1x base critical damage. So on paper, these things aren't supposed to be crit weapons. But Warframe has several effects that give us exactly what we need. First, we use Arcane Avenger. Arcane Avenger gives a large flat critical chance bonus. That means even something with no meaningful base crit chance can start landing critical hits. Next, we have Tenacious Bond. This gives us additional critical damage. And finally, Arcane Crepuscular provides the final piece of the setup. When the condition is active, it gives us a 3x critical multiplier for the relevant damage setup, while also giving us additional ability strength when we're invisible. So now, Jade stars, which normally have 0 crit chance and 1x crit damage, are suddenly capable of dealing critical damage. And because we're using Archon Vitality, the heat status effects from Jade stars are double. So now every time we're triggering the stars, we're stacking even more heat damage onto enemies. And all of this can happen to enemies we can't even see. But there is one important problem. A build like this needs to stay alive. And more importantly, we need to stay invisible. For the companion, I'm using Shade. The goal is to maintain invisibility while we spam abilities. Normally, attacking with weapons would interfere with the invisibility playstyle, but this build barely cares about weapons. The damage is coming almost entirely from Seeking Talons and Jade Stars, so I can stay cloaked while repeatedly casting abilities. That gives the build extremely strong survivability. Enemies can't reliably fight something they can't see. But Shade is also important for another reason. Remember Arcane Crepuscular? It gives us an additional 30% ability strength while invisible. So Shade isn't just keeping us alive, it's also increasing our damage. The base build has 151% ability strength, and Crepuscular pushes that even higher while we're cloaked. Which is why waiting for Shade to cloak you before starting the loop is important. You want the invisibility, you want the survivability, and you want the extra ability strength. But even with invisibility, we still need a way to manage health and energy. And this is where the rest of Garuda's kit becomes the engine that keeps the entire build running. Because I'm replacing Dread Mirror with Jade Stars, I need to be careful about which Garuda abilities remain. The important ones are Bloodletting and Blood Altar. Bloodletting lets Garuda sacrifice health to restore energy. And because we're building heavily around ability spam, this is extremely useful. I'm also using Blind Rage, and I'm not particularly concerned about the efficiency penalty. Why? Because Garuda can refill her energy by using Bloodletting. So instead of trying to make the build highly efficient, I'm using her own kit as the energy economy. But obviously, sacrificing health repeatedly creates another problem. That's where Blood Altar comes in. Blood Altar gives us a source of health regeneration, and that allows us to offset the health lost from Bloodletting. But there's another source of self-damage in this build: Combat Discipline. I'm using an unranked Combat Discipline specifically to take small amounts of damage and trigger Arcane Avenger. Since this build has strong invisibility, enemies aren't the main threat. So Combat Discipline becomes a way to help maintain our crit setup. The only issue is that we're now constantly managing health from Combat Discipline and Bloodletting, which is why Blood Altar is absolutely necessary for this playstyle. The abilities all feed into each other. Combat Discipline helps activate the crit setup. Bloodletting turns health into energy. Blood Altar restores the health, and that energy gets immediately spent on Seeking Talons and Jade Stars. It's basically a self-contained ability spam engine. Finally, for Archon Shards, I'm using 2 Amber Shards for casting speed, and I honestly consider these extremely important. This build involves repeatedly casting abilities, especially Seeking Talons. The faster the casts are, the smoother and more aggressive the entire gameplay loop feels. The remaining shard slots are more flexible. You could use additional ability strength depending on how you want to optimize the build. Now for the actual gameplay loop. First step is wait for Shade to cloak you. This is important because we want the survivability and the additional strength from Arcane Crepuscular. Once you're invisible, cast Blood Altar on an enemy. Blood Altar lasts for about 20 seconds, and that basically defines the rhythm of the build. You want to stay within range of the altar, because it's what allows you to continuously recover the health you're sacrificing. Next, use Bloodletting until your energy is full. Then activate Jade Stars. And now, the Massacre starts. Start repeatedly tap casting Seeking Talons. The huge range hits enemies all around you. Blending Talons allows it to hit enemies through walls. Enemies get hit by slash damage. Jade Stars react to the ability damage and begin firing at enemies. The stars deal heat damage. They can crit because of the Arcane Avenger, Crepuscular, and Tenacious Bond setup. Archon Vitality doubles the heat status effects. And if your energy gets low, use Bloodletting. Then keep casting Seeking Talons. The Blood Altar keeps restoring your health, and you repeat this entire loop until the altar expires. Then, find another enemy. Cast Blood Altar again. Refill energy. Activate Jade Stars if needed. And start spamming Seeking Talons again. It's a roughly 20-second cycle of health into energy, energy into Talons, Talons into slash damage into Jade Star triggers, Jade Stars into critical heat damage, all while invisible. The thing I love most about this build is how it keeps abusing things that normally should limit abilities. Line of sight, Blending Talons says it doesn't matter. Walls don't matter. Zero base crit chance. We found a way around that. bad efficiency? Garuda makes her own energy. Losing health? Blood Altar fixes it. Enemies attacking you? Good luck attacking something you can't see. The whole build is basically a collection of mechanics that should have limitations. But when you stack them together, the limitations start disappearing, and eventually, you're left with Garuda standing in one spot, casting seeking talons into the air, while enemies behind walls start dying and Jade stars begin shooting at things in other rooms. So that's my Garuda Jade Star Talons Massacre build. A huge range, wall-piercing, invisible ability spam build that turns seeking talons into the trigger for a ridiculous amount of slash and heat damage. And the best part is that the gameplay is incredibly simple. Honestly, this build is so powerful that it almost ruins the game, because once you realize you can kill everything through walls, you start wondering why you were aiming in the first place. If you enjoyed the build, consider subscribing for more weird and broken warframe interactions. And if you have another cursed ability synergy I should try, leave it in the comments.